What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to Modality Monday.
Hey.
Before we dive in, you know how we're gonna get started?
Let's get that water.
We're gonna hydrate our organs, our brain, our skin.
We're gonna get it done.
Because if you're dehydrated, you're probably not gonna be productive. And if you're not productive, it's gonna be hard for you to accomplish the things that you want. So we gotta remember, stay hydrated, drink some water. I had the great pleasure in being next to and interviewing my good friend, my good brother, the magnificent, powerful Coach Rob.
Woo woo!
Coach Rob, say what up to the people.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing out there? Hopefully loving yourself and feeling good. You know what I'm saying? If not, you will be after this. Let's get it done.
Wholeness, wellness, and vibrations. So, man, this is way past due. I'm so happy to be here in your presence and be able to talk to the people about what you do, what you offer the world, and how you're here to help. So Coach Rob is an amazing Qi Gong facilitator, energy worker, healer, and vibe master.
I just heard that, right? I ain't never heard vibe master.
Vibe master.
A vibe master.
Man.
Like, dang.
Whenever
that sounds like that's gonna turn some ladies on. Like a vibe master.
That's everybody.
That's gonna turn everybody
Vibe
on.
master.
You a vibe master? Mastering vibes?
Man, it's like every time I'm out with Coach Rob, and it's funny, a lot of times when we link up, it's like not planned and it's super synchronistic.
Yes.
I live in Long Beach, he's in downtown LA, and we just happen to run into each other at the most random places. And every time I'm out with him, it's just high vibes. Like everybody's laughing, everybody's smiling, everybody's having a great time. And I just appreciate the work that you put in yourself. And even before we started, we talked about like the awareness and just being able to understand where we're at in our journeys to help ourselves be more authentic and to just stay centered, you know. And I know one practice that you have taken upon and on your journey is Qi Gong. If you want to talk about, you know, Qi Gong and it's balance. That's the name of his brand. So I guess to start off, you know, how did you come across Qi Gong?
I came across Qi Gong as a source of therapy. So I had been in a relationship, I was married, and I just went through a divorce. And after that divorce, I was at a wedding with a friend, and we were smoking and having a good time. And I come to find out he was a practitioner at Qi Gong, and he offered me some like friend sessions, you know, on some pro bono things. So one day I walked into his office, and he said, "What's going on? Talk to me." So I sat there and I just, you know when you're upset and you haven't really dealt with things, and somebody finally says, "Just share," and you just,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I let it all out, and then he sat back real cool and looked at me and said, "Where do you notice that in your body?" And I was like, "I noticed it like right here in my chest." He's like, "Okay, let's just sit and be with that for a minute." I was like, "All right." So as I sat with it, I started noticing it was moving, and he was like, "Where is it now?" I was like, "Wow, now it's like over here." He's like, "Okay, cool, let's just sit with it." So I was sitting with it, and this went on for like maybe an hour.
Wow.
And that day, I walked back to my apartment, and as I was walking into my apartment, I was looking around. I was like, "The world looks different right now." I'm like, "This is the exact same place, but I don't like what just happened?" And now, after practicing this for over 14 years, I realized what happened that day is I got centered in back in my heart, which made me present and aware. So now I was seeing the world in reality. It wasn't me living from trauma, anger, sadness. I was literally living in the present moment. So from that day forth, I've been addicted to Qi Gong, because anytime I find myself wanting to leave my body, because that's what happens, like I get angry or there's an emotion that comes up that you don't want to deal with.
Right.
It's like, I'm out of here.
Right.
And it's like, no, where is that in here? Oh, that's right. Oh, it hurts. But guess what? It doesn't hurt. It's uncomfortable. And the reason I say it's uncomfortable because hurt is when you get up out of the bed in the middle of the night and you stub your toe in the fucking chest.
Right.
That hurts.
Right.
Like you like, fuck. And you're like, really? Ouch.
Right.
But when you feel into something in your body that's discomfort, that don't hurt. It might be a little discomfort, but we all know if you played any sports, if you've ever done anything in life, it was the discomfort of it that you sat in long enough that made you great. So what I'm here to teach and share with people in the world, as you say, is how do we sit into this discomfort until we feel great about ourselves? Because if you felt great about yourself already, you wouldn't be trying to escape.
Right.
So as long as you come back in and deal what you need to deal with, then you can be great. If you don't deal with it, it's going to marinate, it's going to fizzle, it's going to turn into cancer, it's going to turn into addiction, it's going to turn into something else because you're not giving it the attention it wants.
Right.
And a lot of us out here in the relationships wanting to get that attention from the relationship and mad at the person because they're not giving us the attention we need to be giving ourselves.
Right.
And in the moment we give it to ourselves, we realize we don't need anybody, right? Which is great because a lot of people say, I don't need nobody, I live on my own. That's absolutely true. But what you do need is yourself. And the moment that you have yourself, you want somebody else.
Right.
And that's where I'm at right now.
That's so powerful reflection and powerful realization for yourself. And I think that your friend asking you the most powerful question, where do you feel that? And you having to identify like it's an energy in my body somewhere, and most people don't even have the tools to be able to figure out how to like work with that energy. And you know, for my journey and practices, I know yoga has been a big tool for me to be able to tap into my body and now realize like if I feel a certain emotion, how it's physically coming up in my body and being able to like breathe through that. And from practicing Qi Gong a few times, I feel like Qi Gong is maybe another meditation, almost like another yoga practice where you're moving energy around through your body. So I don't know if maybe you can kind of talk about like what you know about like Qi Gong in terms of like how it allows for you to move energy throughout your body, and like what someone that doesn't know what Qi Gong looks like, how would you kind of like describe it to them if they were like curious about like trying it, you know?
Got it. Qi Gong is kind of hard to describe. It's something you experience, right? And right now we're experiencing Qi Gong because we're experiencing our energy, which is Qi, and Gong, which is skill. So we're skillfully here as two young men talking. We're using our Qi in a way to show people and talk about what we do. We're really good at that, right? But growing up, when you had feelings and emotions where people were like, oh, don't worry about that, shut that down, don't deal with that. So then you never became skillful with dealing with anger, with dealing with sadness. You were just taught to go sit somewhere until it went away, but it never really went away because you didn't pay attention to it. You just kind of ignored it, right?
Right. Be a man.
Be a man,
right.
or be a woman, or be something besides energy. Be this label. But when we just become energy, then we're free of being a label, right? And if we're not a label, then there's nothing negative or positive, right? Energy is just, it's pure light. It's essence. It's everything is contained within light. Right? So that's the best way to describe Qigong is the process of getting to that enlightened state all the time, because we live in a world that we're constantly going to be inundated by things from the outside world, which we call stress. I call it counterforce. You call it stress, it's kind of negative, right? You don't want to deal with stress. But counterforce is like, oh, I got to counter this force. What do I counter it with my intention? I intend to feel into this force. And as I feel into this force, I learn more about the force. And when they said me, the force be with you, right?
That's so dope.
With you.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Is there any kind of like movement associated with Qigong as far as like physically that you could see like helping with like moving energy around? Because I know when I came to one of your sessions, you know, like we were doing like different movements that targeted different parts of the body, and that hit me so hard, and I implement that now in like my meditation sessions when I'm holding space or like my body movement, because I know that there's different movements you can do to target different energy centers in your body. You know, for maybe someone that has no idea like what that would even be about.
So when you asked me how I found out about Qigong, and I showed you that it was like a therapeutic process where I was sitting in the chair and he had me notice into my body. So that's one form of Qigong. The movement Qigong, which I train in, we deal with the 5 major organs. Now, when I say the major organs, I mean the major organs that deal with feelings and emotions, right? Because that's what we're talking about today. Like, most of us are skating over certain feelings and emotions or deeming them as negative, so that means we never give them the attention they deserve. In Qigong, what happens is we pay attention to the heart, and like the heart is one area, we have the lungs, the liver, the spleen, and the kidneys. Now, each one of these areas guide our emotions. So if you're really sad, it's typically because your lungs, you're pushing the energy down in your lungs, right? And when you push something down, you're pressing it down, depression, right? So sometimes things are coming up like, I don't want to deal with that, I don't want to deal with that, right? So you press it down And then you don't recognize the sadness either, right? Because you don't want to be sad, but you're actually sad because you're not allowing yourself to let it up and out, right?
Right.
So there's one movement in Qi Gong that we do. When we do that, it helps bring the energy up and out. So you might notice that you cry or you release something that you've been holding on to.
Right. I noticed that there's a one movement where you come up like this and go down,
Yes.
and it's a good it's good for your lungs and releasing energy from your lungs. And a lot of times when I do that, I feel like a phlegm, like I cough a lot because you're clearing your lungs up. And what's so beautiful about practices like Qi Gong is like you don't need to go see a doctor to get operated on. You can literally move your body to work on different parts of your body for energetic healing, cleansing, and moving your body in a way that allows for circulation, oxygen, and your blood to be able to transport the minerals and nutrients that it needs to be at an optimal level to make you feel good. And the fact that there's modalities out there like Qigong where you can really like tap into yourself to sit with your emotions. And a lot of the times people don't realize like your emotions can cause sickness like cancers, things like that, because of what Coach Rob said before, like not being able to sit with things from your childhood, the past that build up, and either you have like a physical reaction or you have like a mental outburst because you haven't sat with it. And I'm so thankful for like you being able to offer, things like Qigong and I don't know if you want to explain how else you hold space for people.
Man, that's interesting. I hold space for people in a lot of ways.
Right.
So since the pandemic started, I was a personal trainer just like you, right? And I was in the gym and I was using Qi Gong along with working out people in the physical world, right? Because being a trainer for a long time, you get people biceps and abs, and then you lose your clients, you don't see them a while, and you're like, man, I wish there was another way I could hold on to my clients or offer them something else.
Right.
So after I went through that therapeutic process with Qi Gong, the teacher who taught me, he was like, there's movements to this you can add into your workouts. So what I did is when I was in the US Bank Tower working with people and getting them physical, it's like being a barber, right? People want to tell you, when you're a trainer, they tell you their life story. They tell you, this is going on, my girlfriend did this, my boyfriend did that. And, they have a story. And what happens is people get caught up in the story and never get in contact with the feeling. So what I would do when I was in sessions with people is I would do Qigong with them, whether they were realizing it or not, and they would solve their own problems. So what I've done now is, right before the pandemic came, I was getting the energy that was coming over me, right? Now, manage you. I've been practicing Qigong for 14 years. Right. So whenever energy comes up, even if I don't know what it is, I listen to it, right? Because it has a story to tell me. And the story the energy was telling me is, you about to lose your job. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Look at me, I'm amazing. Everyone loves me. I've never lost a job in my life. Right. But my energy was like, you about to lose your job. Right. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean, energy? Well, you're about to lose it, so you need to start moving towards something else. I was like, well, the only other thing I want to do is create this company. It's balanced that I've been kind of doing, but I've been working for someone else and doing it at the same time. And my spirit was like, start working on it. So I got on the computer and I started getting my LLC and building it. And then one day the boss that I was working for walked in and came over my shoulder and was like, oh shit. And I put it away, right? 2 weeks later, pandemic. Boom. So that was on a Friday. I think like that next Saturday or whatever, where I was working at, he called me and said, hey Rob, we don't know how long this is gonna be. But even when we do open up, I won't be able to afford to hire you back as a trainer. And I said, you know what? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I share that story with you all, right? Because I was working in a place that I enjoyed, I loved, but I didn't want to work for anyone. So there was still an energy there that I didn't want to be there, but I made the best of it. And then I also needed to figure out, how am I going to get out of this without burning the bridge, right? Right. But instead of trying to do something about it, I just felt my way through it. And look what God did. Look what spirit did. Look what energy did. Look what vibe did. Whatever you want to call it. Right. It's the same shit. Right. And that's what I want us to understand. Too often we're putting labels on things when it's just one label. Right. It's energy. You call it God, you call it love, you call it vibe. It's energy. So when we check in with our energy, go, that feels a little uncomfortable right there. Okay, just sit with it. And any AA and any addiction to anything, you have to first have acceptance, right? So then once I accepted the fact I was about to lose my job, then I came up with a plan, right? Because what happens is when you about to lose something, what comes up first? Fear. Fear, yeah. Now fear we find in our kidneys. Kidneys is where we balance our fear energy, right? So some of the movements I teach in Qi Gong help us balance the kidney energy so that when fear comes up, we're able to better deal with the fear as opposed to running away from it or trying to get around it. But we're like, oh, I see it and I feel it, but I'm gonna move through it.
Right.
So when that fear came up, then it led me to worry, right? Now worry is the spleen. And the spleen, like when worry comes up, worry doesn't mean stay in worry, it means now it's time to come up with a plan. So now since I've been doing my spleen exercises, when worry comes up, I don't get caught up in worry, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm like, okay, I'm worried, but all right, oh, I got the business, I got to do that. Oh, so worry is my best friend telling me to start this plan, right? And then I went to the heart and I got excited. The heart gets real excited, like, oh shit, they about to get me out of here.
Love, baby, let's go.
I'm about to be my own boss and not work for nobody. I'm about to be helping people the way I want. Oh shit. But then excitement, right? It gets you away from the details. And you miss things. You can skip over steps because you're so excited. You don't see what's really going on. So then there's Qigong moves to bring the heart and excitement energy down, right?
That's a Kanye bar right there. Kanye talks about, he doesn't say excitement anymore. He doesn't say I'm excited anymore.
You know what I say? I'm skited.
Skited.
You know what skited is?
What's that?
Scared and excited at the same damn time.
Scared and I'm skited.
Because when we played football, right? Before we went on the field, we look at each other and be like, you scared?
Right.
Yeah. If you scared, say you scared.
Right.
Don't deny you scared, but keep moving through that shit.
Right.
We're gonna go out here and whip ass today. We're gonna go out here and do what we do.
Right.
So be scared
to make
but
it
be
happen.
excited about that.
Be skited.
Be skited.
Be skited, baby. You hear that? That's a bar right there. That's a new
That's
word
it.
for y'all right there.
That's
We're gonna
it.
be
Y'all heard
skited.
it here first, man.
Scared and excited.
And if y'all try to take it, it's on the internet. We already got it dated. It's here. This is the day and age. You ain't even gotta worry about people taking stuff from you, right?
Right.
Because everything is time stopped and documented, right? So that should allow for yourself to be free. Because a lot of us are holding on to things that we think somebody gonna take. It ain't yours.
Right.
It comes from energy. It comes from source. It comes from the ether. It's for us to project and give out. The longer we sit on shit, the longer we ain't gonna be shit.
Right.
Because we got a lot of shit we gotta share and talk about.
Right.
And when we talk about shit, then we the shit.
Right.
And you see how that's different?
Right.
I mean,
It feels
shit.
good. Yeah.
It feels
I like
good.
being that shit.
I like being that shit.
Right. I like how you were explaining like fear, because I feel like fear is the number one deterrent for anybody and everybody when it comes to their goals. And I was sharing with Rob before we started that I went to a ceremony 2 weeks ago and it was a sweat, and I asked one of the elders like, hey, how you doing? And he was telling me, he's like, I'm dealing with the challenges coming up. And I was going through some challenges at the same time, some pretty difficult ones that I was like, figuring out. I've gotten to a point in my life where there's different modalities that I've tapped into, and the modalities that I practice, I'm able to integrate now into my everyday life when challenges do come up. When you're doing breath work, when you're doing yoga, when you're working out, guess what? Challenges come up, you're like, oh, this is tough. But everything goes back to your breath and like just breathing and becoming centered through it. And in the sweat, if anyone doesn't know what a sweat lodge is, let's imagine it's like a sauna inside a teepee with like these volcanic rocks that create all this steam. So like you're sitting in this teepee and it's like a sauna. So around the second or third wave, that's when it gets most intense with the steam. So usually around the third round, I usually go to the ground because it's cool down there. You're closer to the ground. You're kind of away from the steam. And for this time, I remember like I sat there, and the message that I got, the steam like smacked me. It's like Mike Tyson just smacked me in the face, and I'm just sitting there like. And usually what you want to do is kind of move around, but if anyone knows, like if you're in a sauna or somewhere where it's hot, the more you move, the more your temperature is gonna rise. So the message I got was, it's not about the challenges anymore. It's not about the steam anymore. It's about your reaction. Are you gonna keep trying to run and move around and build up that energy and get exhausted? Or are you gonna sit with it, breathe through it, and figure it out? Because I relate that to fear. Fear is like the steam. As soon as that fear hits you, it's like, oh shoot, like you get uncomfortable, like you try to run away from it, you try not to really work through it. But the more you sit with it and work through it and realize that it's all balanced, and understand that fear is just as powerful as the love when you're working with it, and that's where the magic happens. And we were just talking about before this, there's no such thing as negative energy.
Exactly.
It's all the same. It's your perception of what you're seeing. So if you start switching your perception from that's negative to let me work with this and figure it out. I think that's the number one question that people need to ask themselves when something challenging arises. I'm gonna figure it out.
Which is hard to do, right? Because like for me, when I'm in a relationship and there's things that come up and people go, oh, your partner's being toxic. And I'm like, I hear that, but I can't fully buy into it.
Right.
Because yes, they're doing a behavior that we've named toxic, but once again, that's a label, right? So let's look at the energy of it, right? So now when I look at the energy of it, this person is reacting in a way that they've been reacting since they're a kid. Does that make them a toxic person? No, that makes them stuck in a pattern, right? So now we have to ask ourselves, is there a way we can be with this person in order for them to switch the pattern, or is it something they need to do to work on the switch the pattern? And it's a little bit of both, right? Because depending on how you show up depends on how they show up.
Right.
And if you keep showing up and accepting the pattern and there's something about it you don't like, then they'll keep doing it.
Right.
But if you show up and you have boundaries around the pattern and they want to be around you, then they'll adjust to be around you. So now you've helped heal that person, they've helped heal you because you both allow space for y'all to come together. So as opposed to sitting there and go, oh, you toxic, you negative, you go, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Oh, been there, done that, I feel that. But see, it takes both people. The other person has to be able to feel and be intuitive well. If they, I don't got time for, gotta let them go.
Right.
Let them go. They're not ready. They will pull you down. You will drown with this person.
100%.
They will kill you.
Right.
If they're panicking, they're in fear, they will kill you.
Right.
So if your presence after some point doesn't bring them a certain part of neutralness, then you have to let them be. And realize that everybody can swim.
Right.
And sometimes they didn't need or want your help.
Right.
And that's the hard part sometimes, because I think as human beings, we think it's our duty to take care of others. But in the plane, what do they say? Put the mask on yourself first. But Qi Gong, practice, energy, skill, you have to practice it. It's one thing to know something, right? You say, what is Qi Gong like? I can tell you now you know it, but have you experienced it?
Right.
So when you experience something, now you own it, right? So now that relationship that you call toxic, but then you switched your way of looking at it and you found balance in it, now you have a new experience and you and that person own it, and anybody could call it whatever the fuck they want to call it, but y'all know what it is. So that's love, that's a bond, that's fortified, right? Can't nobody break that. You and I got that. Me and all my friends have that. It ain't just about with who you're being sexual with, it's who you're being integrated with, who you're sharing with, who you're being with. And if we sharing and being with everybody, then we should be safe, right? And the way to be safe is to be from the heart and be from love. So we take all our feelings, all our emotions, right? And we bring them in and we center them. We love all of them. We don't let one of them get too far away and one get, or don't pay attention to one. We like, I love all of y'all. All of y'all are my children, right? People wish they had kids. A lot of people nowadays, like, I don't want kids. Like, I can't have kids. And it's because of whatever they grew up with. They haven't figured out how to manage their energy, and they think they're just going to be terrible parents and they don't know how to raise kids. So I don't want to raise kids. No, you just haven't figured out how to manage your energy so you feel comfortable with bringing kids in this world. Right. And what I'll tell you as a father too, you'll never be comfortable.
There's no comfortability, and that was the theme. So the word work I just had was an event, and that's what I was talking about. It's like it ties into the fear as well, but it's like we're trying to climb up that mountain, and it's like you did the hardest work, like through the most grueling part of the mountain, and then guess what? Getting to the peak is the most challenging part. That's life right there. It's like that most challenging part is right. People stop at the most challenging part because of the fear. They're tired, and they're like, oh, if I get past this, there's gonna be more challenges. But once you get past that last challenging part, boom, you get to the top of the mountain, and it's amazing. But guess what? The work doesn't stop.
It doesn't.
Because there's another mountain to climb.
So, but hold on, but think about this. When we get to the mountain, how often do we sit there and take a breath and take a minute and look at 360, right? Go around, go, wow, I made it. Because if you looked around 360, wow, I made it. Now when you get back down to the bottom of the mountain, you know what you're going to get when you get back top. You got more power to get there. If you get up to the mountain, you doing this, and you ain't never paying attention, what the fuck am I doing this for? I keep going on this mountain. Because you never stop to actually enjoy the view.
And taking the beauty of the moment.
And take the beauty of the moment.
Right.
Because life is a process, right? There's only 9 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 0, right? That's it. And then a combination of those numbers. Right. So life is like a process. We always start at 0, right? We start at birth. We start at nothing. And then we build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we come right back to 0. So if you always know where you're at in the process and you're accepting of it, you go, I'm at a 5 right now. 5 is a place where it's a little challenging, right? 5 is uncomfortability because 5 is an odd number. But 5s quickly turn into 6s. And 6s are balances. And 6s are cool. And you can chill there for a minute and you like it, right? And then next thing you know, you move into a 7, you're like, oh, this It's a little
Wisdom.
uncomfortable again.
Yeah.
It's a little wisdom, right? And as you come out of the 7, you go into an 8, and you in infinity now. You back balance. You like,
I'm out here
though.
I'm always out here when you
Always
realize.
out here.
Yeah, always.
And
I'm
then
always
that
gonna be out
9,
here.
then the 9 shows up, and you get uncomfortable again. You know why? Because you're about to go back to 0.
Right.
But you got the wisdom, you got the lesson, and you go back to 0 and you do it again.
Damn, this is a Qi Gong session right
That's
now.
That's
you
what
don't
we
even
do.
know. So amazing, so amazing.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Love yourself. Now, it's the best piece of advice, but no one ever tells you how to do it.
Right. I think part of loving yourself is figuring out how to do it for yourself.
And I'm 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I just learned how to. What y'all see, the way I love myself right now, happened in a ceremony about 6 months ago. There's a process where they burn like 5 spots right on your skin, and then we put on some frog medicine. Combo. There we go. Combo, man. So I had 2 combo sessions. The second combo session, I found myself. Now, for y'all that don't know what combo is, basically when they put this medicine from the earth on your arm, it purges through your body, and anything you're resisting that you surrender to, it'll come up. So a lot of us have put things so far down that just regular meditation, we won't get to it.
Right.
So when we go into these medicines that bring these energies up in an environment that's safe and allows for us to express ourselves, all of a sudden I'm pounding on the floor. I love you. I love you. I love you. I'm like, and I wasn't holding back, because most times I'm like, I can't do that right now. But with the combo, I was like, I love you, man. Like, it was just purging through my body, let it go, right? And then afterwards, I woke up and I was just like, wow. I wasn't loving myself the way I should have. What I was taught to do was love others, right? And then loving them, I would get love back. Which is great when you live in a household where love is always existence, right? But at some point as a kid, you move out of that and you move into the environment, the outside environment. Everybody in the outside environment ain't gonna love you like the people in the inside environment do. So now if I'm in that pattern, right? That toxic pattern, or we might name it toxic if it shows up later, of always giving to get. Now I'm out in an environment, giving to everybody.
Right.
Hey. And then I'm like, these not family. They're not you. They don't even mean to harm you or hurt you, but you just came on pattern giving. I was like, oh shit, this is why I'm empty. Everybody loved me for 1 minute, but then when I'm empty, like, ain't nobody there because you gave it all out. And I'm accountable for that.
Right.
So after pounding on the floor and I didn't love myself the way I thought I did, it came back to the meditation. And mind you, I've been practicing this for 14 years.
Right.
So the journey never ends. It's always learning something new, right?
Right.
And as I was sitting there 6 months ago, and I realized that from that point, I started behaving differently. I started making sure I took care of myself first. I told you I got 2 girls. When you got kids, like my mother, she gave me the world. And it used to bother me, right? Because I'm like, when we're gone, what is she gonna do?
Right.
And now I count myself in the same pattern. I was giving my kids the world and I was feeling empty. And I'm like, oh, I have to switch the way of loving myself so that when my kids aren't here, I got something for me. Right? Because a lot of parents do that. We like bury ourselves in our kids because we don't want to face our own things. And we think loving them is loving ourselves, and it's not.
Right.
And then on top of that, they're learning that behavior. So that's another, what we could call sickness or toxicity, or just a pattern. So when we say we're going into places to change generational curses and all that, that's kind of dramatized, right? What we're doing is we're going in and changing patterns that we started when we were kids. So what I want to do is break this down to a 5th grade level. So you know, esoteric is something that's hard to reach. Excuse me, ninja, it's this easy.
Yeah. Dang. The generational curses are really what you learned from your parents when you were a child.
And it's not a curse. See, curse makes it like sound like something negative that you want to deal with. But if you say this is a pattern I learned from my parents that worked back in the 80s, but now we're in 2022 and we got to adapt to this, then you allow yourself to change. And if you blame them, then you can never fix anything. And you in 2023. They was born in the 70s and 80s. They was born in a different time, different environment. So their mind frame is for that environment. Right? And they taught you to get to this one. And then when they get older, it's your job to accept this environment and teach them how to live in this environment. But there has to be a certain understanding. But we grew up in households where it was like, you do what I tell you to do. I'm the elder always. at some point we all grow up, right?
Right.
So now that I'm grown and you grown, we gotta talk to each other differently.
Right.
There's no hierarchy or no supremacy, and if it is, then that's not balance.
Right.
So in order to get balance, you gotta respect that you raised and brought me to a place that I should sit beside you, look you in your eye, and we can be honest with each other, and know that your words are no greater than mine or no less, but we're equals. And I would hope that's how most of us want to raise our children.
I would hope so too. It's powerful, especially coming from the perspective that you're coming at. And man, your daughters receive a lot of love, man. They're gonna be way ahead of the game. And man, super powerful gems right there. That was a whole mind trip. I really resonated with it even goes back to the food too, where people get sick and diseases, and they're like, they say, hey, this disease runs in my family. It doesn't run in your family. It runs in your diet.
It runs in your patterns.
In your patterns. So as we wind down, is there one last gem you'd maybe like to share with the people?
The last gem I'm going to share with y'all: smoke. But no, seriously. Though, if you do smoke, do it with intention, right? So I grew up a cop kid, right? Mom, homicide detective, Baltimore City. One of the wire, right? So weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever name you want to put on it, was something that was negative. Right? So I grew up in an environment where I never partaked in it, which I'm glad I didn't at a young age, right? But then when I moved out here to Cali, my first day in Cali, my first day in Cali. But see, it didn't happen. That didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is because I just came from Baltimore, where weed was like this negative thing. My first day in Cali, I'm at a bar that night chilling. I walk outside where everybody go to smoke, but I always walk out just to get air and get like center myself. I've always done it, right? Just get a little. So I walk out and I'm talking with a guy, and he was like, "Where you from?" I was like, "Baltimore." He's like, "Yeah, they that Cali bud," and I was like, "Nah, man, I don't even smoke." He was like, "Okay." And he was inviting me and all. I was like, I didn't go, right? And now after being out here for 14 years, I realized I missed out on a good time. Because out here, weed was a total different. It's like something you do in community, right? It's not something that you do because you just being lazy and lethargic and not trying to move around in life. It's something you do in community. Like, it's cool, you know? So with that being said, on my Qi Gong journey, these energies used to come up for me because I started enjoying weed, but I had all this stuff from childhood that was saying weed was negative, right? So then I had to figure out, like, how do I find a place that's subtle in myself and my body that I can accept it? I smoke weed. You know what I'm saying?
As I should, brother.
As I should. And the reason I can smoke weed and I do smoke weed is because I use it with my meditations, right? It's all about what your intentions are, right? People got mushrooms, people got weed. There's a lot of things, and we can abuse anything. You can abuse ketchup if you wanted to, you know what I'm saying? So, but also if you know what is good for it and how to apply it in a way that's effective, that's how I use weed. So as a tip, the last tip of the day, I'm gonna say do what you wanna do and do what you love to do and find the best way to do it for you.
To do it for you, make it work for you.
Make it work for you.
Be intentional and really sit with yourself and do the healing. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you'd like to get more balanced, more in tune with yourself, with your emotions, with your body, definitely tap in with Coach Rob. If you're interested about Qi Gong, just learning more about his journey and what Qi Gong is and more of the benefits of it. Obviously, you can tell it's a really deep dive into yourself. Tap in. Obviously, we'll have all the information. We'll have them tagged and all the IG stuff so you guys can tap in. I appreciate you guys for tapping in. Thank you to my brother right here for sharing his journey and some deep dive gems for you. And you know what I always say, it's one thing to have your dreams, it's another thing to live your dreams. And there's modalities out there to help you tap in with yourself so you can really bring those dreams into fruition. And Qi Gong, energy work, using cannabis intentionally is all a part of it, if that's for you. So thank you, brother, for tapping in, being on the show. Yes, sir. And I hope you guys have a great week. See you guys soon on the next Modality Monday. Love, health, wealth. Peace out.
See you later.
Cheers.